All right, welcome back to another episode. So today I want to talk to you about tree stands and blinds and tripods, or even sitting on the ground. So which way is going to be the best? Well, that depends on your location and what you're comfortable with. Not one way is better than another, unless you're in a position where maybe you're hunting out where there's not trees that you can use a tree stand, and maybe a ground blind would be better, or maybe some kind of tower blind. I found with tripods and shorter tower blinds like the one you see behind me that blew over in the windstorm we just had. There's also a tripod back behind me that we use for coyote hunting. But I found with those, to get the best results, you have them sit in a position where they're tucked back in this location. You can see this tall oak tree behind me. There's another oak tree right here on the side in here. I'll show you real quick. So there's this oak tree. We've got them tucked in kind of in between those two. So when the deer are coming down the trail, they don't notice it until they're basically right there on it. And honestly, because we leave them out here, they get used to it and it doesn't bother them. And you go set one up right in the middle of a field, the deer are going to notice it, but they'll get used to it after a couple of days. Same thing goes for like a ground blind. You set a ground blind up. If it's not hidden, then if they notice it, they might steer away from it. But once they get used to it, or if you've got it hidden or tucked up against a tree, then they get used to it, or tucked up against a tree and it's kind of hidden where they don't notice it, then it's not going to bother them. I always heard growing up that, oh, you've got to be 20 foot up in the tree, otherwise you're not going to do any good killing any deer. Well, my dad last year shot a 150-inch buck out of a ground blind, 25 yards from the buck that he shot. So that right there says that you don't have to be 20 foot up in a tree to kill a big buck. I mean, 150-inch buck, there's a lot of us that would love to shoot that. I've never shot one that big. I've shot some nice deer, but not a 150-inch buck. He shot another 150-inch buck out of a 12-foot ladder stand. I've always heard, well, the deer are going to see the ladder. You can't kill a big buck out of a ladder stand. Well, he did, so that kind of rules out that saying too. For me personally, I like these type of stands. I like ground blinds. I like my tower blind that you've seen in a couple videos that I've made. And I like ladder stands. I used to hunt with the hang stands all the time and put sticks going up to them, or steps, or use the limbs that are existing to climb up to it. When I was in my teens and 20s, I could do that. Now that I've gotten older, I'm in my mid-30s now and I'm a little overweight, those type of stands don't work for me anymore. It's too difficult for me to get up, and the seats aren't comfortable, and I just don't enjoy hunting out of them that much. So that's going to be your most important thing to think about when you're deciding what kind of setup you're going to use wherever you're going to hunt. Number one thing is safety, of course. So you want to make sure that it's something you feel safe in. I don't care if the manufacturer says this is the safest stand, we guarantee this, that. I don't care about that. If you were to strap a stand onto that tree, and you said, oh, this is the safest stand in the world, and you climb up into it, and personally you don't feel safe in it, whether it's the height, whether it's the angle it's hung on, whether it's just the way the tree moves when the wind blows, I don't care what the factor is. If you don't feel safe in it, that's not a good stand for you to hunt out of. And a lot of people don't think about that. I know I've talked to some people in the past that they would climb up into a tree, into a stand, and once they got up into it, they said, wow, I didn't really feel safe up there, but I had a really good vantage point, and so I just dealt with it. How can you enjoy yourself if you don't feel safe? And isn't that what hunting's about, is getting out, relaxing, and enjoying ourselves, and enjoying what God's made for us? So that doesn't make sense to me. So safety is going to be your number one thing, but then safety, in my opinion, kind of goes into number two, and that's what you're comfortable with. You know, like I said, the hang kind of stands, I used to hunt those. I mean, I've even hunted with, my dad would make a notch board. He'd take a 2x4, cut a notch in it. We'd sit it up in a fork in a tree, and I would sit on that and hunt. You know, that was when I was in my teens, and I felt comfortable in that. Now, ain't no way you'd get me to hunt on that kind of stand anymore. But, so, I guess that's just saying that, you know, it's all personal preference on what you want. Don't let one person tell you something otherwise. That, hey, don't use this type of stand, use this type, don't use that type. I've used them all. And I know a lot of people that have used them all, and you know, you get your preferences on what you like. You know, and like I said, I like these type of stands that are behind me, and I like ground blinds, and I like ladder stands. I mean, if I'm hanging a tree, if I'm going to hang a stand on a tree, which, you know, on previous videos, we've talked about these trees right here behind me. You know, I'm putting a stand right there. It's going to be a ladder stand. And I've just recently saw one. I'm debating on getting it, called the Big Dog XL Stadium, I believe is what it's called. It's kind of got a curve to it, which I like. It looks like it would give me the ability to shoot all around the tree, which I kind of like that too, especially bow hunting. But that's something I'm considering and trying out that new stand. I mean, normally we go to Walmart, we get the ones that are like, what are they, $100? They're 15 foot, you slap them up, and they're actually pretty comfortable. I mean, yeah, you might need to take some cushion to put on the metal wire, you know, the metal rack that you sit on, but otherwise, other than that, they are comfortable, and you feel safe up in them, you know. And that's the biggest thing for me, is safety and comfort when you're sitting in a stand. I don't care if you're going to sit in the stand 5 minutes. I don't care if you're going to sit in it all day long. You want to be comfortable. You want to feel safe. And then if you have those two things factored in, everything else is kind of cakework, as far as, you know, figuring out which tree to put it in, figuring out your travel routes, where the deer are going to come in, where they're not going to come in, that kind of stuff. I mean, you can figure all that out later on, but you know, picking out that kind of stand stuff. I mean, if you get to a spot where you really want to hunt, there's no place to hang a stand, there's no place to put, you know, a tower blind without, you know, clearing a whole bunch of stuff, but you've got a good tree that you could sit down on the ground to, do that. I've done that plenty of times. I've killed deer doing that. My dad's got several deer in his house on the wall that he has shot, you know, standing out in the middle of a field or sitting next to a tree. So, you know, no one's to say that you can't do that. I mean, one of the biggest bucks I've ever seen, and that we lost, we even had a game warden and a dog trying to find it and couldn't find it, but was when I was in the 6th grade. Had a double drop buck get up in front of us. The game warden that had seen him prior to us shooting him said that he probably was going to be a 220-inch deer. I mean, he was an absolute monster. He's big as some of the stuff I raise in my pens. You know, probably bigger than several of the ones I've got in my pens. But I was on the ground when I shot him. Well, we didn't find him, but you know, that's a different story, and we can get into that one day if someone wants to hear that depressing story. But my point is, when you take into consideration the deer travel routes, you take into consideration how you're going to position yourself to how they travel, the type of stand you use doesn't matter. All that matters is if you're comfortable and you're enjoying yourself. That's what matters. My dad and I are kind of getting spoiled because I've got 2 box blinds that I've built over at the other property. One's sitting on the ground that he loves hunting out of. He's killed several nice bucks out of. He killed a real wide 10-point. He killed a really nice 8-point. Back-to-back years, almost, you know, days apart season-wise it goes, you know. I think he killed one middle of, like, the 5th day of muzzleloading season. The next one, like, the very last day of muzzleloading season, out of the same blind. And we've seen a lot of deer out of there. My buddy's daughter shot her first deer out of that blind, you know, at 5 yards at that. So we've gotten kind of spoiled because they're enclosed. I can sit in that when it's raining. I can sit in it when it's snowing. I'm comfortable. If the wind's blowing, I'm not cold. If there's a lot of mosquitoes, I just shut the windows, turn on the thermocell, and I'm good. And I can sit there and enjoy myself and you know, watch. And so I mean, we're getting more into those type of stands because they're more comfortable for us. I mean, I'm looking at some of those muddy stands, really thinking that I might need to get one of those muddy box blinds or one of those rednecks. I haven't decided. I kind of like the way muddy's built a little bit better. And then again, I might just go buy the lumber and build it myself. Of course, the price of lumber right now is kind of outrageous, but we're not going to build one this year, but I've got a couple places I'd love to put a couple more. Dog's out here walking around and just watching what he's doing. I think he was chasing a rabbit a minute ago, but so yeah, so if you want, you know, like a cheap tower blind like this one right here, we bought this one on clearance. The company discontinued them. I don't even remember the name of the company. I think they actually went out of business last year, but we got this one on clearance. It's just a metal platform. It's got some metal poles that go up, and then it's got a fabric blind that basically goes on top of it. The tripod over there is the same kind of thing, you know, metal tripod, and it's got plastic that goes around it. But you can sit in that and stay dry if that's something that's important to you. Now you got to watch when you buy a ground blind or buy one of these blinds that's fabric, and make sure it does say that it's waterproof if that's one of the things that you're concerned with. But do it's enjoyable. I mean, you're out there to hunt and harvest an animal eventually. That's your goal, I'm sure. But if all you do is sit in the stand, you enjoy things, and maybe you take a few pictures and don't get to harvest one this year, you're better off than the people sitting in the city doing absolutely nothing, that don't understand how enjoyable this is for those of us that do it. So with all that in mind, I'm going to leave you with one more thought, and that's going to be safety harness. I'm not always been the best at it, but if you're going to climb into a tree, make sure you've got that safety harness on. You don't want to fall out of the tree and end where you can't come out here and hunt anymore. You want to be able to make sure that you go home to those that love you, and make sure you can come back another day. So, you know, make sure you remember to wear that safety harness when you go climb up in that tree. And, you know, and they've got harnesses now where, you know, you can hook it on. You've got your line, so you pull your line up as long as you go. So if you slip off of the step, like maybe you're climbing up a ladder stand on a frosty morning, your foot slips and you fall off, that safety harness just saved your life. So, and take it from someone that's fallen out of a tree. I got in a hurry one night, was so excited to go hunting because there had been a nice buck coming to the stand a few years ago. Got there, was fixed to climb up into the stand, realized I didn't have my harness. I didn't want to go back and get it and take a chance of spooking him when I came back. So I just went ahead and climbed up into the stand. I'm sitting up there, I hear something behind me. I'm trying to twist to see what it is. It ended up being a squirrel, but in doing that, the chains on the platform broke, and I fell 15 feet. Luckily, I didn't hurt anything, and it had just rained, and right there the ground stays real soggy, so it was somewhat of a cushioned blow. And when I started to fall, I guess the one smart thing I did on my way down is I took my bow and I threw it out in front of me as hard as I could. It was about 20 feet away from where I hit the ground, but I didn't land on the broadhead that way. But I'm a true believer after that of wear your safety harness, because you don't know when something's going to fail. And that's just that extra protection. Yes, it's made by a man, so it can fail as well, but it's that extra protection. Please wear that. You don't want to fall out and end up in the hospital. Or worse, end up out in the woods for hours because you can't reach your phone to call anyone, and no one's going to expect you gone until it's after dark, and then they've got to try to tell search and rescue where to go to try to find you in the middle of the night. Especially if you're hunting in the northern part of the country where it's really cold and you've got snow, that could be the meaning of life and death in just hours for you in a case like that. So, hope you like this video. Hope it helps you out. Hope you take your precautions when you go hunting next time and you're climbing into a stand. enjoy yourselves. More videos to come. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like for more.